My name is Rebecca, and we are going to work on some strengthening for the glutes today. And this is going to be a technique more for functional movement, for stability, and for just kind of overall strength. It's not really the kind of movement you're going to see for building up and more aesthetic muscle building. This is really going to be kind of nuanced work. So all you will need for this is a yoga strap or a belt, a longer towel, a sash, something that you can tie tightly. I don't recommend doing resistance bands for this because they're going to be a little too stretchy for what we're trying to do. So take a moment, grab something, and you're going to make a loop in your strap. It does not need to be that big. So maybe 6 to 12 inches, well, it depends, and I'll talk about that in a second. So set that aside, come to standing. And first thing first, I just want to talk about rotation of the hips. So we're going to be working with external rotation of the legs. So that is what it sounds like. If you are internally rotating your femur bone, your upper leg, you're going to be turning your toes in. And I know that you can do that with just your feet. You can turn your toes in and out. But think about doing it from your hips. So this is internal rotation. This is external rotation. So external rotation. And what we're going to be doing is bending the knee and balancing on one leg. So when I externally rotate my upper leg, my femur in the hip joint, when my knee is bent, when I externally rotate it, this foot is going to cross the midline of the body. So just keep that in mind for the next bit that we're doing. The other thing is when you bend your knee, a lot of times we pull the knee up. So you notice I pulled my knee forward. I'm really going to work on trying to keep my knees in line with each other when I do this. And then the other thing is tilt of the pelvis. If you take your hands to your hip points, your ASIS, and then you take your thumbs around to, there's like a little knobby spot, usually on the top of your pelvis, your PSIS. You want to find a neutral pelvis where that's pretty level. So what happens when we're doing this work is there's some sensation that usually arises for most of us. And in order to get away from that sensation, we tend to pull the knee forward and stick the butt out. So this is anterior tilt. I want you to try to keep a neutral pelvis. So for some of us, that may mean pulling the tailbone down. Try not to tuck the tailbone, that's a little overkill. So most of us, if we just think about lifting the lower abdomen, that will help. All right, so find your strap and step into the loop you've created. And you're going to bring the loop above your knees and tighten it there. So I want it pretty snug. So not all the way up, that's about right. And I'm standing with my feet about hip width apart. I am a little bit knock-kneed, so if I take my feet together, it's hard to get the strap tight enough, and it's hard to find that pressing out without doing something weird with my feet. So you want to find your stance for your body. This is what it's going to look like for me. If your knees tend to go outward, you may have your feet together. So just take that into consideration. So I'm going to stand and work on pressing out against the strap. So right off the bat there, if you take your hands to your outer hips and you press against the strap, you may feel some stuff happening, you may not, but we want to get that action going in this movement. And if you are having issues with balance, bring a chair nearby, move to a wall so that you can work with these movements without having to worry about your balance. Although the balance does start to build strength and stability as well over time. All right, so I'm going to start out by bending my left knee. And again, remember I said the knee wants to come forward. So I'm going to pull my knee back in line with my right knee, trying to keep that. I can feel that I already tilted my pelvis forward. So I'm going to lift my lower abdomen a little bit to find more neutral pelvis. Still trying to press out against the strap. Now I'm trying to draw this heel to this sit bone. Not going to happen, but that's the work that I'm doing. And already I'm feeling a lot of things start to fire up. The last thing to add here, press out into the strap, keep the knees in alignment, lift the lower abdomen, pull the heel towards the sit bone, and try to keep this heel lined up with the sit bone while I work on externally rotating my left thigh. So what my foot wants to do is come over to the right, so travel over to my right sit bone. So I'm trying to keep that from happening, and as I'm holding this, my glute med is firing because I'm pressing out a little bit, my hamstrings are getting some work, And I'm also feeling just everything start to heat up. A lot of little muscles that I don't typically feel working when I'm trying to do things like squats or stuff like that. All right, and then you'll release. And if you felt some cramping in your hamstring, totally normal. We tend to have some weakness in the hamstrings. Even if you do a lot of things like hamstring curls, it can be targeting just one area of the hamstring. So this can also have the added benefit of strengthening your hamstrings a little bit. So I'm going to turn to the other side so you can see what I'm doing. Again, I'm going to try to stand with my feet wide enough that I can press outward against the strap. Gaze is forward, find something to hold on to if your balance is a little off. I'm shifting into my left foot and bend the right knee. Press out, I lost my balance, press out into the strap, try to keep the knees lined up. Pull my right heel to my sit bone. Still press against the strap and try not to let this right heel drift to the left as I externally rotate my right thigh. And no, there's not a lot of movement, I'm just doing the action. Still trying to keep my pelvis at neutral, squeezing in, hugging everything together. And I'm actually feeling the standing leg fire up as well. I didn't mention that on the other side, but you will get a little bit of engagement going on there as well. All right, release that. And you can come out of the strap. So this is an exercise that I did about 3 reps of. When I first started out, my hamstrings were really weak. I could only hold it for about 10 seconds before it felt like they were gonna rip in half. And so now I do it like about 35 seconds on each side, 3 sets. And what I would recommend is definitely do some hamstring stretching at the end of this, because you can feel some tightness start to come up. So maybe hand to big toe, you can just lie on your back with the strap and stretch your hamstring. So thank you for joining me for this tutorial. Happy hamstrings and glutes. I hope you have a good rest of your day.